Yo, it's Sean from While She Sleeps, and you're watching Loudwire. The first riff that I heard that made me want to play guitar or pick up a guitar, I think it was like maybe Blink 182. Like, the first riff I ever learned was Damn It by Blink 182, so it's a terrible riff, right? I know the things that troubled me the most when I started playing was like the calluses on your hands, is like, because they're so soft and you've never been rubbing them against like strings and hard metal, they get so fucking shredded to bits. And after a while, they kind of get hard and get used to it. But I remember every time I picked up my guitar, I knew that I'd been on it so long, because the pain of doing like a fucking, even to do a power chord absolutely killed my fingers. So I had to wait so long until like now I can't even tell, do you know what I mean? So, yeah. I remember when I was younger, I was attracted to music with the riffs because I never listened to the screaming when I was younger. I kind of like bypassed it. So I got attracted to riffs that almost sang in themselves, do you know what I mean? So it had so much dynamics in the riff. That's what I really enjoyed about the metal. Like bands like As Lay Dying, like, I probably couldn't sing one word from As Lay Dying, but I know every single riff, do you know what I mean? So. See, a normal person would play that like upstrokes like this, like. But for some reason, as time developed, I got really into like doing those strums but downpicked, because I realized if you can do it that quick, it sounds 1,000 times tighter if you can do it right. Like, instead of being like, if you can go, it sounds 1,000,000 times better, but when you get it to a speed, it sounds pretty cool when it's like. Instead of just being like. Darkest Hour definitely defines some of that's the way that I play guitar these days. Even to this day, I think they're still quite an underground and underrated band. Some of the riffs that they produce, like, it's one of those bands that I'm like, you haven't heard that band, it's crazy. There's so many of those bands, which is a shame, that they produce such good music and they just don't get what they deserve. But in a sense, like, those riffs have like lived in me and like gave me so much inspiration when I was younger. So this was the first riff I heard by Darkest Hour that I was like, See, it's riffs like that where it's like, it's not just a flatline riff, it contains emotion because the bottom root note is always changing. Whereas if you go to like a typical hardcore riff, like, I don't know what that is, but like, the root note stays the same, which is all right sometimes, but Darkest Hour and As Lay Dying were the first band where I heard those riffs where the root would change underneath the top end of the riff, which I think that substituted for me not listening to the vocals because it created like a melody as well. So like, I fell in love with those kind of riffs. Okay, this may be the first riff I ever wrote. Don't laugh at me. If I'm speaking from where I feel about them right now, it's because it's so easy to do a breakdown these days, and like, this all sounds so similar to me. So when what I call a breakdown might not actually coincide with what other people think is a breakdown, because when I was growing up, a breakdown was kind of like. With some kind of stop in it like that. But the way I look at them now, it's more like, it's the point in the song where the dynamics can open up and it creates space for that's where this comes from, the actual punch of the song. So it doesn't, for me, it doesn't necessarily mean like the typical like, I'm not into that anymore. I'd prefer to do it where, I like to do breakdowns that don't stop. So it'd be like, So the bass and the guitars and the kick pedal, they're all shagging each other, basically. So with the kicks like dun, 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 dun. So everything's getting this bang, 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 bang. Then maybe chop it up later and then drop to that. But I define that more as a breakdown where it's the moment where you cannot not bang your head. First, While She Sleeps riff I wrote. I know one that's close to it. This is an early one. But that's nowhere online, so that's so early, it's like a demo, so. I've not really got a solo in While She Sleeps, but I've got lead patterns everywhere. But everyone says they sound like solos, but they're not. So they're like another riff on top of a riff, which I really enjoy, because it's never like, oh, it's me time, but like, I don't really enjoy that so much, but I really like making patterns where you're like, that is so pleasing to my ears, you know what I mean? So it was more so how to find the right note combination and not how fast it needs to be. I think that's just super important in solos anyway. It's not about shredding, it's about, like Sweet Child of Mine, for example, it's nothing. It's just a few picks, you know what I mean? Like saying that, I don't know how to play it, but it's just a few notes next to each other, but it's the note placement that makes it what it is. It's what's so special about it, you know what I mean? So I think that's important with stuff like that. For example, this is a really old song. It's going to sound terrible with no effects and stuff, but this is 7 Hills by While She Sleeps. And that changes throughout the song, but it's like, there's no shredding involved, but I know, like, it's to the point now where people sing the lead before we start playing, like, and like, that means more to me than f***ing, do you know what I mean? So I think the note placement's really important in that shit. This is probably the riff I'm most proud of on the latest record. It's from Guilty Party. And again, that's an example of like how much I love doing the straight picking, like, because you could have played it like, which is fine, but I mean, if you've got fresh new strings on and a nice tone, you get the. This is the intro riff for Antisocial from the album So What.